Since there are so many of you, I haven't got to meet everyone. So if you do ask a question, just tell me your name because I want to get to know you more. My name is Brenda Morgan. I am a health coach, nutritionist, and a personal trainer. I've been working with ThriveWell for many, many years. I need to figure out the math, but yeah, it's been a while. And just to get started, to let you know, I will be here for the rest of the month. I'll be here for the 11 a.m. class every Tuesday and for the 6 p.m. class every Tuesday. And I might have some treats. I might have some prizes like today. If you actually come to class, there's an opportunity for you to win little prizes. Maybe nothing great, but stuff is fun, right? Just to win. um, and I have, since I've been working with ThriveWell for a while, and I've taught a few nutrition classes, I'm asking people, what do you want? What do you want to hear? What do you want to learn more about? So this whole month, we're going to be focusing on macros because people are asking me, what about protein? Am I getting enough protein? How much do I need? What about fats and oils? How to cook with fats and oils? Because, a lot of people are using olive oil for everything, and then you heat it up and it has lost some of its nutritional value. So we're going to go through all those different oils and learn about the best way to use those. Then we're going to talk about carbohydrates, the good, the simple, the complex. We're also going to talk about sugars and sweeteners, get a lot of questions about different kinds of sugar. Is it better if I have maple syrup instead of simple sugar or honey, or what's better? So we're going to talk about that also this month. But today, just protein. But I do also want to put in a little teaser. If you come to class, next week is Valentine's Day. So if you come to class next week, I have some treats for you. They're healthy treats. Awesome, awesome recipe. So today, let's just talk about protein. What are they, and why do you need them? And some best ways to get them into your daily routine, whether you are an omnivore or a vegetarian or a vegan. We're going to cover all of that today. What is protein? Why do you even need it? How much of it do you need? We're going to actually, everyone has little pieces of paper. So there's notepads also. We're going to do a little bit of math so we can personalize this to you. So those of you at home, you might want something to write down with. We'll talk a little bit about plant proteins, different kinds of proteins, which ones are essential and non-essential, and then being able to put those together if you're a vegetarian or vegan, making sure that you get all of the kinds of proteins that you need. And some tools that you can use daily. And at the end of this, I've tacked on a little bit about hydration because people are asking about it. But I just kind of put it on at the end of protein because we need a lot of water to process that protein too. So we'll just talk a little bit about that. And if you want more hydration knowledge, we can talk about that too. I am Brenda Morgan, as I said, a health coach, nutritionist, a personal trainer. I am super focused on helping people get the best out of their food, the best out of their life, with their lifestyle habits, with their sleep, just how do you do things, and being here for support. And the thing I love about ThriveWell and this whole group is that you can support each other. So the things that you're learning here, just the fact that you showed up today, you're just a little bit closer to some of that behavior change. So knowledge doesn't always equal change in your behavior, right? So how do we get that? We are supporting each other. And you constantly need reinforcement, because if you've got 40 years worth of habits and whatever your environment is and your upbringing, it's kind of hard to just change it like that, right? So we need support, and we've got a good more people coming in that can support us all. So what is protein? Protein are the building blocks of our body, right? Our hair, our muscles, our organs, our hormones, which a lot of us, we're going through changes in our hormone. Well, we always are, even when we're teenagers, when we're little kids, when we're teenagers, in our 20s and our 30s, things are shifting, things are changing. And how do we keep those nice and balanced and getting all of the nutrients that we need to keep those hormones balanced, to have nice skin and nice hair? There's 21 kinds of proteins. We call them amino acids. I'm going to try to keep the language down, the scientific language down as much as I can. I will rein myself in. But they're called amino acids, right? Those are the little building blocks of the proteins. And there are about 21. 9 of them are essential. Essential means that you have to consume them. Your body does not make them. Okay? And non-essential are the amino acids, the proteins that your body does make. Why do we need proteins? Why do you think we need proteins? I know I shouldn't have, here, I don't know if I can go backwards. There you go. Why do you think we need proteins? For our muscles, that's right.
As things break down, we need to rebuild.
As things in our body break down, we need to rebuild them. I'm going to go, other people might have answers too, but I just want to run with that, with the building up the muscles and as things break down. Because as we age, our muscles with age and our organs, everything's breaking down. So we need to make sure that we replenish it a little bit more than we did in the past. Once we start hitting upper 40s, 50s, and every decade after that, we really need to start replenishing those proteins even more. And we're going to go into some of those calculations so that you can personalize that for yourself. Did anyone else? Why do we need protein? Anyone else want to answer? They're the building blocks of our body. Yeah. Energy. The brain, she's pointing to her head, right? The brain. And what were you saying?
I was just saying nourishment for the body.
Nourishment. That's right. I mean, there are 3 basic macros, right? Protein, carbohydrates, and fats. We need all 3 of them. And protein is what we need for energy. Like, we need the carbohydrates for energy and the fat, but they form different functions. We're going to get a little bit more into that. So to avoid some of that the natural aging muscle loss that we have, we need to keep replenishing it. But we want to do that in the cleanest way and the best way for our bodies. And one of the things we'll talk about and that you're going to find is that your protein needs might be different than her protein needs, than his protein needs, depending on your age, and also your genetics. So some people need a little bit more animal protein, and some people can do fine on a vegetarian or a vegan diet if it is well constructed, right? Your physical functionality, you guys want to do things. You have plans? Do you have plans today? Do you have plans next week? Do you have plans in 10 years? What about your grandchildren? Right? We want to keep that energy up, and we want everything to be moving and working well. The joints, everything working well. And we want to look good, right? Is there anyone who doesn't want to look good? Vanity's okay, right? It's all right. We want to go out there and be strong and look healthy, right? It makes you look healthy. You can see people that they're not eating as well. And you can see it in the way they stand, in the way that they perform, just in the way they look. You can see it in their face. You can see it in their eyes, right? And it also helps to build those hormones, the enzymes also. So we've got enzymes in our body that are made out of proteins that break things down in order to build it back up again, right? So for those of you who are at my last presentation, I use this slide, and I'm gonna use this slide more because we need reminders of it. It's nice and basic. It is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It is our recommended daily intake. But look at that. Look at the protein. 10% to 35% is recommended. Wait, what are you supposed to do with that? How do you take that home with you? Right? You're like, wait, am I 10? Am I 35? That's a huge difference. So we're going to play around with that a little bit, and I'll give you more information depending on your exercise, your age, your disease state, right? What illnesses you might have. Maybe you have an injury. You're going to need more protein in order to repair that. So 10 to 35%, and you can do some experimenting too. Work writing things down, kind of figuring out, how do I feel when I have, doing some calculations. Maybe you use a MyFitnessPal or a Lose It app, any of those apps that might be tracking your macros. If you really want to get into it and kind of see, how do I feel when I have 10% protein a day? How do I feel when I have 20% protein a day? You start just playing with that, right? Because I see you're here, you want to learn, and I know you're going to go home and kind of put some of this into action, right? Let's play around with it. Let's see. So how much you need depends on your age, depends on your gender. You're not going to need the same amount as my 15-year-old son, who is needing more. He's needing more. My husband's always like pushing protein on him, or animal protein, right? So we kind of like to, we have some, but we kind of like to veer towards the plants. But my husband's like, you need more protein, you're growing. And you know what? He does. He needs a little bit more. And if not, he's got to eat a whole heck of a lot of quinoa and soy. So we got to balance that out for your stage of life and for your physical activity. So when you go to those Thrive Well classes, even when you're doing yoga, right? You're doing yoga, you're getting stronger. You're holding these poses, right? For the flexibility, for the strength, when you're doing the strengthening exercises, you're getting stronger, but you're breaking muscle down in order to build it back up. You need to make sure you're filling it well, fueling it well. And for injury repair and for sickness, we might need some more protein for those things. So it depends on where you are at your stage of life. Here we go. It's the math part. Hey, I like this part. Other people are sad and I love it. Okay, so you don't have to share, but write down how much you weigh. If you have a calculator, if you have a phone, or you could just do the math by hand if you like that kind of fun. How much you weigh divided by 2.2 kilograms. She's like, don't look at my phone. Yeah, divided by 2.2. We need to figure out what your kilograms are, how much you weigh in kilograms, or we could just all move to Europe. Canada is all the way. So once you figure that out, write that down. Everybody good? I see people still working, so I'm going to give you just another minute. I'll give you at home another minute. Write it down. Do it. You should know how much you weigh in kilograms, because we're going to need it for the next few weeks. Okay? So according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, their recommended daily allowance for protein is between 0.8 and 0.01 grams per kilogram. BW is body weight, right? So for every kilogram of your body weight, they recommend 0.8 to 1.0. This is the average healthy person, right? They have to make a huge generalization because they're reaching everybody from teens all the way to 90-year-olds, right? So this might not apply to you. But if it did, say you weigh 150 pounds. If you weighed 150 pounds, that's 68 kilograms. And I just went in the middle, 0.9 grams. That means you're going to need 61 grams of protein a day. If you work out more, medium to high physical activity, they would recommend 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And this is to maintain the muscle. So this is just to maintain, okay? But as we age, to maintain our muscle, we're looking at least 1.0, 1.2 grams per kilogram. That would be paired with resistance training. What is resistance training? Weights, I'm hearing. Isometric can be resistance training too, right? Holding in one place. Right, like I was talking about with the yoga. So lifting weights, any resistance training, pushing against, you could do push-ups, pushing against your own body weight. What were you going to say? HIIT exercises, yeah. So you're getting a little bit of cardio and you're getting a little bit of strength. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes when you're doing that strength exercises, if you're doing them without breaks in between, you might be getting in some of that cardio too. So highly recommend as we age, make sure you keep that or put the resistance training, the strength training in if you're not already doing it. For injury or illness repair and healing, you're looking at 1.0 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. That goes up significantly, right? For cancer healing, actually, let me see who I have my citations here. So I want to make sure I'm keeping you. Okay, so this is from the Nutrition Care Manual. So this is what the clinicians would use in hospital or as they're treating you afterwards. So probably the people here at ThriveWell would be recommending to you for cancer healing that you would need about 1.0 to 1.5 grams per kilogram. Cancer cachexia, that is when you start to lose body weight. When you're like losing body weight involuntarily and you're getting very, very thin and very, very gaunt. That is when they really up the protein. So you're looking at 1.5 to 2.5 on that. And then some of the new research is showing, I'm currently working on my master's in nutrition, and I just finished with a research class. And so one of the papers that I was researching was a couple of the papers, but both of them were talking about how, and this is some new research, so this is 2021, that they're finding, especially with older women, that now this would be paired with weight training, with some weight training or strength training. They're finding that an optimal range would be 1.6 to 2.0 grams per kilogram. Now, I will say this is one study, and there needs to be more studies to be done, but there are more studies that are coming in that are finding the same thing. In order to build up or to maintain that muscle mass, you want to be looking at the higher ranges of protein. So how do we get it? Protein. We're looking at animal sources, fish, salmon, whitefish, and then next week we're going to be talking about oils, fats and oils. So I'm going to be getting into the omega-3s and the omega-6s, super important essential oils that you have to consume because your body does not make them, but you need them for your heart and your brain. So in the fish, in the salmon, you'll be able to get those from that, but also a really great source of protein. And it's a good source of lean protein too, right? So you can have the beef and the, I didn't even write beef. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, good. You can have the beef, you can have the pork and the chicken and the, but most of the time you want to keep it pretty lean. I have a question.
Yes, two things that I don't know if they're okay would be protein powder or protein drinks that are so.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. So she's talking about protein powders, protein drinks. Yeah. And you know what? I didn't include that. That seems very obvious. Yeah. The one thing I would say about protein powders is if you're really good at label reading, look at your ingredients and look for the cleanest protein powders you can find. I highly recommend a hemp protein powder because it tends to be a little bit higher in the protein, pea protein. You can do whey. You can do whey protein because that's going to be higher protein, but then that's milk based. So those people that don't do dairy might not want to do the whey. But there are a few. Orgain is one of the cleanest. There's some good clean protein powders out there, but Orgain is a really good one. Orgain. Orgain does have a vegetarian, but they also have a whey. Yeah. Or sorry, they have a vegan one, they have a plant-based one, and then they also have whey ones. So yes, if it is whey-based, then it would be vegetarian, right? Thank you for asking about that. I will amend my presentation here. I'm gonna write that down. I don't have a pencil. Here we go. I'm sorry, say that again. The protein drinks, I mean, Orgain, again, has some good protein drinks. There are some drinks out there and powders out there that are good. You just need to look at your sugar content. That's the main thing I'm going to tell you to look at is look at the sugar content, right? But then also, once you get to the back of the label and you start seeing lists of ingredients, stuff that you can't recognize, and I know Suzanne has told you this lots of times. I've heard her. So yeah, once you get into too many ingredients, then put it back on the shelf because there's another one called Gold Standard that is a good clean protein. And I'm sorry, I don't have them all memorized, but I will look those up too. And thank you for bringing that up. So that's a really good way to get extra protein, right? Especially if you're doing the vegetarian or doing the vegan thing, to get that extra protein with the powders. You can also, if you're making smoothies or other things that you might be adding in protein powder into, you could also get some soft tofu, silken tofu, because at least that way, of course, tofu's processed, but at least it's something a little less processed, right? You're using that tofu. You can blenderize it. So if you are vegan, vegetarian, then I gave you a handout here because most people know the animal proteins, right? So I like to share this handout because we forget that there's a lot of protein in greens too. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There's a good amount of protein in greens. I actually, on the way here, was eating steel cut oats. And yeah, I'm always surprised because I like numbers. So I like to count and track things. And I'm thinking like, I'm looking at my day and I'm like, okay, I need to get some more protein in. And then I look at my numbers and I'm like, oh, the oats that I had like a significant amount of protein, right? I'm getting some. So we're looking at like beans, nut butters. Now, I had to look this up because I have a peanut butter problem. Hi. Hi, my name is Brenda. I have a peanut butter problem. Hi, Brenda. Yeah, so we got to be careful with the nuts. So I looked this up too because people are like, "Well, they have protein." I'm like, "Yeah, they have a lot of fat too." It's good. It's good fat. It is essential fat, right? So I'm not saying not. I'm just saying we got to be a little bit more careful with it. That the whole jar of peanut butter, not so much. Because I can say I've never done a whole jar. I'm thinking about it now. No, okay, I've never done a whole jar. But sometimes they're like, when the children start getting under my skin, right? And they're like, why is mommy in the pantry with a spoon? And it's just, I mean, it's okay. Exactly. I'm like, other parents are doing wine, so just leave me alone. It's okay. So anyway, I didn't get to the part. I looked it up just to like kind of look at the percentages, right? We're looking at about 50-50 when it comes to protein versus fat in your nuts, right? But if you get a piece of lean tuna, salmon, then you're looking at maybe 10% fat in those. So that's the difference. I'm just trying to show you like the difference in that 10% if you're really trying to get that protein in. Greens and broccoli, lentils, really good way to get protein if you're doing the vegetarian vegan thing, and great fiber and great nutrients, which we'll keep talking about all this month. Okay, so that's what I want to show you here is, so I tried to keep it as equal as I possibly could, like what might be a serving. So 4 ounces of salmon, you're looking at 29 grams of fat. So you've done your calculations here and you figured out I need, and this is the low end, right? 1.0, 68 grams. This is maintenance for a healthy person. But just see if you can get 68 grams. Maybe play with some of those apps or you can do the calculations by hand. But you can get 29 with 4 ounces of salmon. Yay. You're a third of the way there. With the beef, try to go for that leaner cut, right? Grass fed. The lentils are going to give you 18. So that's going to give you 20 of the 70 that you need. Milk. And I need to add in, I got to write this down. I need to add in protein powder. So protein powders, people with experience in protein powders, a scoop of protein powder is what, about 2 tablespoons? Or 3 or 4 tablespoons? Okay, and so in a scoop of protein, I know, that's the problem. That's why I'm trying to like see it in my head. I'm like, is that 2 tablespoons? 3? It's an eighth of a cup. If it's an eighth of a cup, then that's 2 tablespoons. But in general, those of you with protein powder experience, about how many grams does each serving? We'll just call it a scoop. About 25 grams.
The highest ones, yes. There's some that are lower.
Yeah, I've seen some around 18. So we're looking at 18 to 25. That's pretty significant, right? And if you're having trouble, if you get to the end of the day and you've got 50 grams of protein, then you just put a scoop of it in your smoothie. I'm trying to figure out what you're going to do at the end of the day. Why don't we just start the day off with it? Actually, I'll just skip. Yeah, I'll just skip ahead. Actually, one of the other research articles that is recent research, 2020, I think, is another one that's talking about the timing of your protein and to build up your, and I know I actually told you this in a few months ago in one of my classes, but I'm going to keep repeating it, is that the timing, the morning protein helps to build more. There is a difference. Now, again, there needs to be more research done on that, but this is good double-blind controlled experiments that are showing that morning protein is more important. So just put that scoop in the morning. At least you know you've got your 20, 25 grams to get you started. Okay, I got to put in protein powder.
What about chicken? It's not listed on here.
Yes, I do.
And one was probably supposed to be chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Good food.
That must be what it was. Well, but they both say, I think that I probably left it. Sorry, I will add in the chicken. Thank you. But I'm just going from memory. I think we're looking at about the same as the salmon and the beef because it's lean, right? It's just protein, especially if you're doing the breast. It's just protein. So if you're looking at 4 ounces of chicken, thank you for asking that question. I will fix my presentation. Turkey chicken would be the same. Yeah, because you're looking at about the same leanness, and it's all the poultries, right? So I would say you're looking at a good 29 grams, 28 to 29 grams with the chicken. Yeah, and I can just tell you that from experience. But look at the tofu. I know that Suzanne talks to you about tofu or any soy products. Nuts. Now look at the nuts. A half a cup of nuts. You're getting 5 to 6 grams of protein. So yeah, there is protein in there. But we'll also talk about next week the fats, the very important fats. I have a question.
How does pork rank among the animal proteins as far as health-wise? You know, sometimes in my mind, pork has a bad reputation. I know it says lean pork on another slide, but I try to eat a lot of chicken, but every now and then I want something different, and I think, I shouldn't try pork.
So she's asking about pork and maybe some of the bad connotations that come with it, and is that a bad thing? I would kind of treat pork almost in the way of meat because it's the saturated fat that we're trying to be careful of. The people that are saying, I don't do beef, and some of it's for ethical reasons. They don't want to eat cows and pigs. But as far as like health-wise of it, it's because of that fat. It's because of the marbling. That's all saturated fat. And so if you're getting if you're cutting off the fat, you're not cooking it in the fat, I would see you're going to get the same amount of protein, that 29 grams-ish. And then if you're concerned about the saturated fat, which is something that we do need to be careful of, then I would say cut it off, right? Or you can cook with it and then cut it off.
I just tend to think of pork as not as healthy as chicken or turkey.
It's no less healthy. So pork is not any, right. It's not any less healthy. It's a protein. It's an animal flesh, sorry, I didn't want to say flesh because I didn't want to cross it, but then I did. It's animal flesh like anything else, right? So it's muscle like our muscle. The way she's asking if it takes longer to process, to digest. Right. No, and actually that's one of the things that's great about protein in general is that it does take longer to digest. It keeps you satiated. It helps to slow down the glucose in your system so that you stay fuller longer. You don't get insulin spikes. You don't get sugar spikes. So yeah, I mean, I can tell you just from everything that I know that pork is no less good for you than beef or chicken. I think it just comes down to the leanness factor of it. And we can talk about that more too. I'm going to look these things up. Yeah, like a tenderloin. Exactly. Yeah. Good. Now I'm getting hungry. Okay, we got to finish this up. So I'm like, oh, pork. I haven't had that in a long time. But your half cup of quinoa is going to give you about 4 grams of protein. So you're just getting an idea here of, and also I put in that high protein cereal too. Again, be careful with those and the sugar in them, but it's an option because sometimes you're just like, I just want some how much more oatmeal can I eat? Sometimes you just want something a little bit crunchier or something different, and they just put that protein powder in, and there's lots to choose from now. So that's an option. Yes.
I usually will put the protein powder on the oatmeal
Yes.
and then a little bit of nuts, so that way I'm trying.
Right, you get the crunch. So she's saying that she puts the protein powder in her oatmeal. Highly recommend that. Yeah, if you're not a smoothie person, like I like to eat with a spoon. Yeah.
I've been putting yogurt in my oatmeal.
Yeah, Greek yogurt in your oatmeal. That's not even on here. Oh, yes, it is. 11 grams. And they've got so many yogurts that they've actually put in more protein. So you can get like 20 grams. Again, be careful of the sugar. And those, so read your labels. But lots of options.
On the oatmeal, is that a half cup of cooked or uncooked?
Aha, I wrote that down on purpose because, so the oatmeal is a dry portion. So that's a half cup uncooked. And the quinoa is the prepared portion. That's a half cup uncooked. That's a half cup. Sorry. The oatmeal is uncooked. The quinoa is cooked. I have another question. Go ahead.
Protein-wise, regular milk versus soy milk.
Protein-wise, regular milk versus soy milk.
How do they compare?
Yeah. So just off the top of my head, regular milk, cow's milk, is going to have more protein. Yeah. Because the soy, basically, they're just going to have to add more water into it, and then unless they come back and re-fortify it with protein, I don't have those memorized, but I can tell you again off the top, because I like numbers. I can tell you off the top of my head that cow's milk is going to have more protein, but you could put protein powder in your in your soy milk, which they might do, right? I'm sure if you look at, there's a plethora of soy milks. I'm sure there's some there that. So I want to talk about complementary proteins. I was talking about the essential proteins and the non-essential proteins. The essential proteins, who wants to answer? The essential ones are the ones you have to eat or not eat. You have to. I love how you participate. Thank you for your questions and thank you for speaking. I love it. But even if you're on a vegetarian, vegan diet, you're not doing eggs, you're not doing dairy, you can get what you need from combining complementary proteins, right? So nut butters the nut butter would be some kinds of amino acids proteins. With your whole grain bread or wrap, you put those together, bam, you have a complete protein, right? Rice, these kinds of proteins, beans, highly recommend brown rice, more fiber, more nutrients, put them together, complete protein. So when to eat, we kind of already touched on this, but the research is indicating that morning, early day helps to gain muscle mass. And it may be more beneficial, and you have experienced this, right? Your friends tell you, like, oh, eat the protein first, or the fiber. I say protein and fiber, right? So you're going to fill up on a lot of veggies and protein before you start going for the more simple carbs, before you start going for the bread and the fruit and things like that. Get your protein in first because it'll start to satiate you. You won't be quite as hungry. So having the proteins first helps. Oh, now I'm really hungry. Okay, on the back of this is your recipe. This is my favorite breakfast. I love this, and I brought this to show you. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this really quickly because we're running out of time and I want to get to hydration. I might just move hydration to the next one. But Brussels hummus, egg, power salad, lots of protein here. You've got, so I put arugula. This picture has arugula. It has avocado, eggs, and then you can just do quinoa. Did I write quinoa? Yeah, you can just do quinoa. But I found this at HEB. It is a super grain blend. It has quinoa, millet, and buckwheat. And my family is really liking it because you've got just the quinoa part of it, but the millet and the buckwheat, when you make it, it's almost kind of oatmeal-y, in the sense it expands more, kind of like ricey. Plus you're getting a bunch of nutrients that you don't normally get. How often do you eat millet? Nobody, crickets. And this has 6 grams of protein per quarter of a cup. So that's better than oatmeal and quinoa bites. This is an HEB organic. It is gluten-free. And maybe, it just occurred, I just had this idea right now. When we have our drawing at the end of class, maybe I have a few prizes here someone can choose, but maybe someone can just have this bag because this is what I would choose. So go home, try this recipe. Let me know what you think. You have my phone number. You have my phone number pretty much on every slide. And if not, I have some cards at the back there. Text me, call me, let me know what you think. Have fun with this. I will just give you a little tip too on this recipe. I don't know if I wrote it. Yes, red pepper flakes. So I actually was given some spicy nuts for Christmas, like that are kind of glazed with spice on them. So they're like spicy. And so I chopped those up, and that's what's in this picture, which I need to leave right now because I gotta go make this.
Shredded Brussels sprouts, is that they're cooked first?
I eat them raw. So she's asking about the shredded Brussels sprouts. I eat them raw like lettuce. But if you like them cooked more, you can cook them. But yeah, love it. And then sometimes dried cranberries if you want a little bit of extra sweet on that. I also put a bonus dressing recipe. This is not to go with this salad, but it can. I just put this on here because I just created this recipe and I'm loving it. The basil vinaigrette dressing, using it on everything. So let me know what you think about that also. Basil vinaigrette. And this says like 2 to 4 cups of basil leaves. I just like get like the whole plant, like the big thing of basil, and just stuff the blender with it and then put the other ingredients in it. So you can actually do a lot more, just more greens. It's good for you. We're at hydration. Before we go on to hydration, does anyone have questions on the protein?
Ask about veggie patties.
Veggie patties.
Out there.
Uh-huh.
Are there any veggie patties? Yeah.
She's asking about ready-made veggie patties and if there are any out there that are more recommended than others. Well, you know what? I'm going to put that question out to you guys because I'm in my head. I'm like, I haven't had a veggie patty I make them. I can't think of a brand. There's one called Dr. Which one? Prager?
Yeah. Dr. Prager.
Dr. Prager's. Yes. When I ever have had to buy a veggie patty, that is the one that I have purchased after. So, I mean, imagine Brenda in the grocery store. I'm reading everything, right? Turn it over, reading everything. So Dr. Prager's is the only one that I've ever actually purchased. So does anyone else have any recommendations for veggie patties besides make your own?
Because I mean, it's processed still, right?
It's still processed, and that's why I like the Prager's, just because it's a little like you can still see the food in it, right? You can see the quinoa, you can see the beans and the corn and whatever they put in it. So it's a little less processed and it has a little less additives in it. Because once you make those things and then you put it in the freezer, it's got to last. So they've got to put more. It's in the freezer section. Yeah. So if you're looking for veggie patties, they're going to be in the freezer section. Yeah. And they've been moving them around. So they were sometimes they were in the produce, and then they put them in next to the breakfast frozen stuff, and then they put them at on it. It depends on where you go, right? But then so sometimes they'll have like a vegetarian or a healthy living area. So sometimes you might have to hunt them down. But if you want to buy a veggie patty, I think Dr. Praker's is probably one of the best ones. Does anyone else have any suggestions on that? I'll write, again, another thing to write down. See, there's so much to learn. That's why we can come here every single week and have these conversations, because there's so much to learn and there's so much we can gather from our community. Okay, well, it looks like we are out of time. So I am going to move the hydration to next week, because I want to tell you that I've got some treats for you for next week if you come. And we will do once we finish with the recording, we will do a drawing. Yeah, so, but I'm just going to say before we turn off this recording, if you come to class in person, because we want you here, then we have prizes. Sometimes, every once in a while, not always, but every once in a while we have prizes. But the prize is that you get to be with your community and have a great time. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Use the comments, YouTube, underneath, and let us know, what do you want to learn more about? Because we're here every week, Tuesdays at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. and have a great day.